Just 20 minutes after takeoff, the captain asked to use the restroom. Suddenly, the Airbus A320, flight Germanwings 9525, changed course and began diving straight toward the French Alps at over 700 kilometers per hour. Sensing something was terribly wrong, the captain rushed back to the cockpit. But tragically, the door was locked from the inside. Knowing the aircraft had only moments left, he tried desperately to break it down, but it was too late.
500. 400.
So, what really happened to Germanwings Flight 9525? March 24th, 2015. The bright Mediterranean sunlight shone down on Barcelona El Prat International Airport. At Gate B31, a pristine white Airbus A320-211 belonging to Germanwings, the low-cost subsidiary of Lufthansa, was ready for its journey to Dusseldorf, Germany. It was a routine commercial flight, lasting about 2 hours. Captain Patrick Sondenheimer, an experienced pilot with over 6,000 flight hours, including more than 3,800 on the Airbus A320. He had worked for Lufthansa and Germanwings for more than 10 years. A devoted father, he was well respected and trusted by his colleagues. First Officer Andreas Lubitz, a young pilot, just 27 years old. He had about 630 flight hours, including 540 on the A320. Lubitz had undergone rigorous training with Lufthansa. However, what few people knew, and what would soon turn tragic, was his complex history of mental health issues, which he had kept hidden. His training had once been interrupted for several months due to severe depression, but he was later certified as fit to fly. A total of 150 people were about to take off. The passenger cabin was a cross-section of European life. Tourists, couples returning from vacations in Spain, business travelers, professionals heading home after meetings, students. Most notably, 16 students and 2 teachers from Joseph Koenig High School in Haltern am See, Germany, returning from a cultural exchange trip. Everyone settled into their seats, fastened their seatbelts, and looked forward to going home after one last warm day in Spain. No one could have imagined that a hidden, invisible danger, not from mechanical failure or bad weather, but from within the cockpit itself, had just begun to start the engines. At 9:40 a.m. local time, Germanwings Flight 9525 left the gate. All pre-flight checks proceeded smoothly, strictly following Lufthansa's procedures. The weather was clear, with excellent visibility. At exactly 10 a.m. local time, the A320 accelerated down the runway and lifted off gently toward the northeast. Its 2 CFM56 engines roared powerfully, carrying 150 lives into the clear blue sky. In the cockpit, exchanges between Captain Sondenheimer and First Officer Lubitz were professional and relaxed. They discussed the upcoming landing, future flights, and minor personal matters, showing no sign of the disaster that was about to unfold. The aircraft reached its cruising altitude of 38,000 feet, about 11,600 meters, and entered French airspace, flying over the Pyrenees and heading toward the Alps. By 10:30 a.m., everything was still perfectly normal. Captain Sondenheimer informed First Officer Lubitz that he would be stepping out of the cockpit briefly to use the restroom. Moments later, the sound of the sliding cockpit door was heard, along with Lubitz's well-wishing remark.
"Hope everything goes well."
The captain replied in kind. The moment the cockpit door closed, the calm atmosphere vanished. Lubitz was now alone in the cockpit. 10:31 a.m. Just seconds after the captain stepped out, First Officer Lubitz carried out a cold, deliberate act. He moved the altitude selector from 38,000 feet to the lowest possible setting, just 100 feet, and activated the descent mode. The A320's nose began to pitch downward. The descent rate was set at nearly 3,000 feet per minute. This action was carried out in complete silence, with no notification to air traffic control. In Marseille, air traffic controllers quickly noticed something was wrong. Flight 9525 was suddenly losing altitude without any communication or request for assistance. 10:33 a.m. Controllers tried to contact for you 9525.
Germanwings 9525, do you have a problem?
There was no response. They repeated the call. Still, only deadly silence. Meanwhile, outside the cockpit, Captain Sonnenheimer realized that something was amiss. He rushed back toward the cockpit. As he reached the cockpit, the captain tried to open the door, only to find it locked from the inside. He began pounding on it. 10:34 a.m. Light knocks on the door were followed by the captain's voice. "Open the door!" The knocking grew harder. The captain began shouting, demanding the door be opened. 10:37 a.m. The banging became violent, accompanied by the captain screaming from outside.
"You bastard! For God's sake, open this damn door!"
He even attempted to break the door with a heavy object, possibly the emergency axe. However, the cockpit door had been reinforced after the 9/11 attacks to prevent terrorist intrusion, and once the locking mechanism was engaged, it was nearly impenetrable from the outside. Inside, First Officer Lubitz remained completely silent, only the calm, steady sound of his breathing, a horrifying composure in the face of impending destruction. In the passenger cabin, panic began to set in. The plane's warning system issued its cold, repetitive voice. "Sink rate! Pull up! Pull up!" As the aircraft plummeted, people began to scream. The Airbus A320 continued its deadly plunge at nearly 700 miles per hour, heading straight toward the French Alps near the village of Prades-Haute-Léon. Altitude dropped rapidly, and the jagged terrain became increasingly visible through the windshield. Outside the cockpit, Captain Sonnenheimer's desperate efforts reached a climax. Violent banging on the cockpit door mixed with his final screams. He knew all too well what awaited them. 10:40 a.m. The aircraft's warning system issued a decisive automatic alert. "Terrain, pull up." Just 10 seconds before impact, outside the cockpit, screams from the captain and passengers, the shriek of twisting metal, and the piercing alarms of the aircraft's warning systems. Inside the cockpit, First Officer Lubitz remained almost eerily silent. No matter the chaos outside, he remained calm, breathing steadily, making no attempt to alter the plane's course or respond to the panic around him. He had fully locked the aircraft and the 149 other lives into a path of self-destruction. The plane hurtled through a narrow valley. On the CVR, the sound of engines pushed to full power could be heard, likely the autopilot system attempting an automatic pull-up, or perhaps Captain Sonnenheimer's final desperate attempt to regain control in the last moments. 10:41 a.m., Germanwings Flight 9525, traveling at approximately 430 miles per hour, about 700 kilometers per hour, crashed into mountainside near the Massif de Trois Veches. The impact was catastrophic. The plane struck the jagged cliff head-on, instantly disintegrating into thousands of fragments. The largest pieces recovered were no bigger than a car. Debris and human remains were scattered across a vast, inaccessible area of a mountain. All 150 people on board were killed instantly. The event unfolded so quickly and violently that there was no chance of survival. The bright, clear morning sky was suddenly transformed into the scene of an unimaginable tragedy. Shocking investigation. Immediately after crash, an international investigator team, led by France's Bureau of Inquiry and Analysis for Civil Aviation Safety, BEA, was deployed. The recovery of the cockpit voice recorder, CVR, and later the flight data recorder, FDR, proved crucial. The data painted a chilling picture. Official conclusion. The accident was a result of a deliberate and intentional act by First Officer Andreas Lubitz. Lubitz was found to have suffered from severe mental health disorders with suicidal tendencies and had sought medical help multiple times before the crash. Critically, he had concealed his condition, including medical leave documents, from both the airline and aviation medical authorities. By locking the cockpit door and activating the automatic descent, he carried out an extended act of suicide that killed 149 other people. Enhanced mental health assessment. Aviation authorities pushed for a review of mental health evaluation procedures for pilots. Recommendations included more frequent psychological assessments and the establishment of a system allowing pilots to report mental health issues anonymously without fear of losing their licenses permanently, along with stronger pilot support programs.